States that we unanimously find that the defendant, Tamar McIntyre, did not cause the death of Anthony Saldivar under the immediate influence of sudden passion. Punishment to be assessed at 80 years in the prison.
Everyone assumed TK's story came to a screeching halt the moment the judge handed down that brutal 55-year sentence. But they couldn't have been more wrong completely. Dangerously wrong. What unfolded next turned an already shocking verdict into a waking nightmare. 2 murders, a viral track taunting the police, and a manhunt that swept across the country. This isn't a movie script, this is the jaw-dropping real-life saga of TK. Today, you'll trace how a teenage rapper went from laying down tracks on SoundCloud to laying bodies in the street. One tweet triggered a prison break that embarrassed the entire justice system, and his own girlfriend's testimony in court drove the final nail into his fate. Think you've heard stories like this before? Think again? TK's journey is darker, wilder, and more twisted than anyone ever guessed. Everyone says they saw it coming, but not even his own family understood how deep McIntyre's craving for chaos truly ran before he, Was TK really the teen outlaw who trolled the cops in a viral rap? Or was he just another lost kid nobody wanted to claim? Born on June 16, 2000, in Long Beach, California, city where gang flags wave proudly, gunshots bounce off alley walls, and kids learn to sprint before they can spell, TK entered a world already stacked against him. His father, a small-time hustler with a streak of terrible luck, treated jail like a revolving door. His mother, neck-deep in gang life herself, had no lifeline to offer. By the time TK turned 2, Child Protective Services had seen enough, tore him and his sister away. Kayla, whoever she was in the chaos they once called home, signed them over to foster care and moved on. The years that followed blurred together in unfamiliar beds and unfamiliar faces. No birthday balloons, no Christmas lights, no whispered bedtime prayers, just caseworkers and social workers. All paid to care, but none who ever truly stayed. By the time TK turned 7, his dad was out of prison, and for a brief moment, hope sparked. Maybe this time he'd have a real father. Maybe this time things would be different. But instead, his dad grabbed the kids and hauled the family off to Texas, chasing something else entirely. A fresh start. It never showed up. New city, same nightmare. School felt useless. Home was a war zone. His father's rage exploded over burnt toast. Failed homework earned beatings. And once he tied little Tamor to an ironing board so tightly he couldn't move. A 5-year-old crying while the man who made him stared on. Stone-faced, is it any wonder the boy ran? By middle school, Tamor had stopped chasing grades. Instead, he chased music, the one thing that never hit back. He filled old notebooks with rhymes, practiced flows in the bathroom mirror, and dreamed about, He dreamed of becoming the next big name from the block, but dreams don't put food on the table when the fridge is bare and your fists are too small to matter. The streets offer shortcuts. High school passed in a haze of smoke and hallway fights. He rarely showed up for class, but he never missed a roll call with the Daytona Boys. They were part rap crew, part street unit. There was Eric Johnson, better known as Santana Sagemooth on the mic, quicker with a pistol. Then came Jalen Bell, who everyone called Pimpies, the loyal sidekick who never said no. And finally, TK-47, Tamara's street name, before anyone even knew to care. Most people couldn't even pronounce his real name. Together, they were loud, reckless, and exactly the kind of crew every school principal secretly hoped would just disappear. By 15, Tamor stopped pretending. A leaked letter later revealed why he got busted bringing weed to school. They expelled him without hesitation, and Tamor didn't blink. He split his time living at Pimpy's house, recording verses late into the night, skipping sleep to sneak into clubs where no underage kid had any business being. Music was the dream, but robbery became the backup plan. The Daytona Boys needed cash for studio time, clothes, parties, and none of them had parents footing the bill. None of their parents were footing the bill. But on New Year's Eve 2015, as the clock ticked into 2016, fate handed Tamor his first taste of real blood. It happened after a house party in Arlington, Texas. Santana Saji, the only one with a car, was playing shofar for the crew. They pulled up to a red light. Another car, packed with college kids, rolled up beside them. Windows down, laughter spilled into the cold night. What happened next is still tangled in witness accounts and street rumors. Some say someone in the other car yelled a racial slur. Some say it was, One bullet tore through 21-year-old Sarah Mutlichner's headshot was gone before anyone could even dial 911. For 6 months, investigators stitched together tweets and party photos. Santana didn't deny it, he claimed it was self-defense, that someone in Sarah's car had threatened them. The jury didn't buy it. 44 years. No mercy. As for TK and Pimpies, they were still minors. Their names never even made it into the courtroom. They watched their boy go down for a murder they'd seen with their own eyes. And then they walked away. Ask anyone from TK's old block, and they'll tell you that was the moment he crowned himself untouchable. In his mind, he'd beaten murder. The streets started calling him the kid who laughed at death and walked away clean, but trouble doesn't stay buried for long. Less than a year later, he set the plan in motion that would destroy whatever future he still had. Mansfield, Texas. October 2016. 7 people, 1 house, 1 wealthy teen who, rumor had it, kept weed and stacks of cash hidden under his bed. The bait, a pretty girl named Mia Zachary, Belot's girlfriend. She'd send the text, "Act sweet. Play innocent." She unlocked the door and let the wolves walk in. Inside that quiet house were Zachary and his roommate, Ethan Walker, just ordinary teens on paper, but that night, they became breaking news. Around 5 p.m., Mia showed up with her friends Ariana and Megan. Zachary thought it was date night. He let them in, unaware he'd just welcomed his own setup crew. Outside, TK Pimpies, Shaw Robinson, and Letharin Merritt waited in a parked car, masks ready, brass knuckles in one pocket, a loaded pistol in the other. The hours dragged on. Inside, the girls stalled awkward small talk, nervous laughs, and constant text updates. When the moment came, they unlocked the door, and the crew burst in like a SWAT team with zero training. Guns drawn, yelling, "Everybody, hit the floor." They ransacked the place, pulling out drawers, tearing through closets, screaming at each other when nothing valuable turned up. And then came the shot that changed everything. In the chaos, Letharin's gun went off, 1 bullet straight into Ethan Walker's stomach. The kid bled out on the carpet of his own bedroom. Zachary took a shot to the shoulder but lived to remember every second. Every face in that house was burned into memory. Within days, the cops had names. Within weeks, they had confessions. And within months, they had Tamor, the wannabe rapper, who insisted he never held a gun, never pulled a trigger, but admitted he was there when a kid bled out. He was just 16. The system hesitated. Lock him up in juvie until 18, or try him as an adult. For a brief moment, Tamor thought he'd caught a break. His sister Kayla, barely an adult herself, pleaded with the judge to release him into her custody with an ankle monitor. The judge agreed. Tamor got one last shot. 8 months later. A single tweet shattered that mercy. 8 months locked in. 4 walls closing in. Ankle monitor strapped tight, every step tracked. Every move watched. For most teens, that would have meant surrender, maybe even remorse. But TK was never most teens. For him, those 8 months weren't punishment, they were a countdown. A fuse burning toward the wildest move of his life. On March 26, 2017, he finally broke, sitting alone, mind racing. Eyes locked on that glowing ankle monitor, the symbol of every limit chained to him. TK pulled out his Equo, grabbed his phone and fired off a tweet that changed everything. The internet lit up. Followers went wild. Comments poured in. Was he serious? Or just flexing for attention? But TK wasn't bluffing. He called up his closest friend, Jalen Pimpies, the only one who'd always had his back. Together, they grabbed kitchen knives and hacked off their GPS monitors. No words could have made the message clearer. This wasn't just rebellion, it was a direct shot at the Texas justice system. Catch us if you can. Within minutes, the manhunt began. But TK wasn't slinking into the shadows like some ... TK wasn't hiding like some scared runaway, he was busy writing his own legend. Their first stop was San Antonio, just a few hours away, but a whole different world from the cops and surveillance closing in back home. And instead of keeping a low profile, TK did the exact opposite. Photos started surfacing online. TK eating burgers at local spots, strolling through malls, casually posing with fans who recognized him. He was out there living like he wasn't wanted for murder. Meanwhile, Texas police were humiliated, outplayed by a teenager who'd made them look like fools. Then came the next ... Then came the next reckless move. One afternoon, TK and Pimpies set up a meeting with Mark Salavera, photographer they'd found on Instagram. Mark was hyped, thinking this was his shot to work with a rising rapper. climbed into their car inside a deserted parking garage, not realizing he was walking into a setup. The vibe flipped fast. They pulled a gun, demanded his expensive camera gear, and forced him out. But Mark didn't go quietly. He fought back, leaping onto the hood, furious and panicked, slamming his fists against the windshield. Witnesses later described the moment with chilling detail. TK didn't hesitate. Leaning out the window, he took aim and pulled the trigger. Mark fell from the hood, hit the pavement, and never got back up. And every second of it, the struggle, the shot, the escape was captured by a nearby security camera. They grabbed Mark's gear and bolted, racing back to Arlington. Maybe it was panic. Maybe just pure recklessness. But by then, the damage was done. The footage had already made its rounds through law enforcement. And TK and Pimpies were now two of Texas's most wanted. In the span of days, they'd gone from reckless kids to teenage fugitives. With murder charges piling up, Texas was no longer safe. TK and Pimpies jumped into a beat-up car and drove 23 hours straight. No sleep, barely pausing to pump gas until they hit New Jersey. It was the farthest they'd run yet. But even there, TK had bigger plans. While most fugitives go silent, TK craved a spotlight. He found a cheap local videographer, handed over every dollar he had left, and pulled off the unthinkable. He filmed a music video. And not just any track. It was ... the Race, a bold, defiant anthem bragging about outrunning the cops while literally on the run. "I was trying to beat a case," he rapped, grinning into the camera, flashing weapons like trophies, mocking the justice system to its face. He dropped the video on YouTube and the reaction was explosive. Within days, it racked up millions of views. Teenagers shared it non-stop. Rappers jumped on with their own remixes. TK became the hottest name on the internet while still a wanted fugitive. Meanwhile, law enforcement was a national embarrassment. The U.S. Marshals stepped in, launching a full-scale manhunt. TK's face was everywhere on posters, flyers, news reports, coast to coast. But instead of fear, fans saw him as a rebellious icon, not a dangerous fugitive. For 2 weeks, TK and Pimpies drifted through shadowy basements and dingy motels, watching their own faces light up TV screens as they went viral. But fame doesn't last forever. On June 30, 2017, the Marshals closed in. They raided a small house in New Jersey, found TK and hauled him out in cuffs. And even then, TK still got the last laugh, just 2 hours after his arrest. The official video for the race dropped on YouTube, perfectly timed to taunt law enforcement one final time. It blew up instantly, gaining even more traction thanks to the headlines around his capture. Overnight, he wasn't just a viral rapper, he was a legendary outlaw. But back in Texas, prosecutors weren't impressed. They moved fast. Within weeks, they announced that TK, still just 17, would be tried as an adult for Ethan Walker's murder. In court, they read the lyrics of the race aloud, treating them like a confession. "You didn't just rap about running," the prosecution argued, "you bragged about killing." The jury listened closely, every lyric, another nail in his coffin. Outside, fans chanted "Free TK," but inside the courtroom, silence hung heavy as the judge delivered the sentence. Years behind bars, still, even that blow didn't break TK. From prison, he signed a record deal. The race soared past 100 million views and streams, becoming a cultural phenomenon. Even locked up, TK believed his fame could somehow rewrite his fate. But justice wasn't done with him yet. Mark Saliver's murder still loomed, and as more witnesses stepped forward, TK's world began to crumble. Megan Holt was sentenced to 20 years. Mia got probation. Letharian, the one who pulled the trigger on Ethan Walker, was handed 40 years. Then all eyes turned to Jalen "Pimpies" Bell, TK's closest ally. Prosecutors made their offer: testify against TK and you'll get out sooner. But loyalty ran deeper than freedom. Jalen wouldn't flip. Instead, he took a plea: 30 years for robbery and accessory to murder. When Jalen walked out of the courtroom, TK knew it. He was completely alone. No friends, no backup, and now staring down a second murder trial that could bury him for good. Still, his cocky confidence didn't fade. From jail, he gave a phone interview on Adam 22's No Jumper podcast, bragging about having an iPad stashed in his cell. Guards heard it, stormed in, found the device, and threw him into solitary confinement. But even in isolation, he stirred trouble. Word spread that he was trying to form a gang called the Rugrats, planning to take on the dominant Hispanic crew, Tango Blast, for control of the pod. For a brief moment, the internet still believed TK had a chance. Fans clung to hope that he'd win his appeal, beat the next charges, and walk free as a rap legend. But reality hit hard. His second trial loomed, and the prosecution had saved their deadliest move for last, a betrayal so intimate it shattered any sliver of hope. TK's own girlfriend, Joanna Reyes, would take the stand. Her testimony was precise, devastating, and personal enough to make sure he never saw daylight again. And that final blow, Joanna's chilling words, her detailed betrayal, and how it's ultimately sealed TK's fate. That moment belongs in part 3, where the final act unfolds in a courtroom drowning in tears, fury, and the last flicker of hope fading for good. If you thought this story was intense already, just wait. Joanna's testimony didn't just surprise, it stunned, turning TK's trial into his final grave. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications, because trust me, you won't want to miss the explosive conclusion. When your world finally collapses, it's almost never strangers who deliver the final blow. It's the ones you trusted most, it's the ones you love most, the ones you trust with your secrets, your softest spots, who hold the power to destroy you. For TK, that person was Joanna Reyes. She knew his heart better than anyone. But when she stepped onto the witness stand, every secret they'd ever shared became evidence. This wasn't just testimony, it was the final nail in his coffin. The courtroom was packed, tension thick like a storm about to break. Outside, cameras flashed and fans still chanted "Free TK" in blind loyalty. But inside, Joanna sat quietly, head low, voice trembling as she began her story. I met Mark Salivar through Instagram, she whispered, her eyes fixed anywhere but on TK. Tamer TK wanted a photographer, someone good, so I reached out and set everything up. Prosecutors leaned forward. They knew Joanna's words were their sharpest weapon. She spoke evenly, explaining how she thought it was innocent, just a shoot, but when Mark showed up at the parking garage, everything shifted. He mentioned a scheduling issue, asked if they could reschedule. TK agreed, strangely calm. Then Mark made a simple request to ride to the mall. That's when everything exploded, Joanna said, her voice breaking, eyes brimming with tears. TK pulled out a gun, pointed it at Mark, and demanded his camera bag. Mark didn't back down, he fought, desperate, leaping onto the hood of the car, refusing to let them go. Joanna's voice cracked as the memory poured out. Tamar was screaming at me, telling me to drive, to shake him off, but I couldn't move. I was frozen. She paused, took a deep breath, knowing what came next would seal TK's fate. Then, Tamar leaned out the window and fired. Mark hit the ground as they drove away. Jalen Pimpy sat silently beside them. Jalen turned to Timor, laughed, gave him a high five, and said, "You got your first body." The courtroom erupted, gasps rang out, eyes wide with disbelief. TK sat frozen, staring straight ahead, stunned by Joanna's betrayal. His defense team scrambled to object, but it was too late. The jury had already heard everything they needed. Then the prosecutor stepped forward, voice steady, and asked the question everyone was thinking. Why hadn't Joanna come forward sooner? Her voice shook. "Because TK threatened me," she said. "He told me he'd kill my family if I ever said a word." It was over. Joanna's testimony stripped away every defense, every excuse. TK's claim that he never held a gun, never meant for anyone to die, crumbled the moment his own girlfriend took the stand. Someone he loved, trusted, and tried to protect had just buried him in front of the jury. Desperate, his lawyers played their last risky card. They suggested Mark Salivar's bag missive contained something illegal, something that could explain TK's actions, but the judge wasn't having it. Furious, he dismissed the jury, scolded the defense, and ordered them to forget what they'd just heard. Instead of helping, the move backfired, deepening TK's trouble. The prosecution's closing arguments landed like a hammer. The prosecution painted TK as cold and dangerous, a teen who killed without remorse, then turned it into music, glorifying violence for fame. In a final plea, TK's older sister Kayla took the stand. Her voice trembled as she tried to show the boy behind the headlines, describing a brutal childhood, their father tying TK to ironing boards, beating them with sticks, and foster homes that treated them like trash. She begged the jury for mercy, insisting he never had a real shot at life. He didn't run from justice, he ran from hell. But the judge's face stayed hard. The judge's eyes never softened. The jury stayed cold, unmoved by Kayla's plea. To them, TK's choices were his alone. The verdict came fast, crushing, and final: guilty. Sentencing delivered the last blow, though he escaped a capital murder charge that would have buried him without parole. The outcome was barely better: 80 more years stacked onto the 55 he'd already received, a total of 135 years. By the time parole was even possible, he'd be old, frail, and long forgotten. Even behind bars, TK's defiance burned on. Reports surfaced that he was trying to build a prison gang the Rugrats meant to challenge powerful rivals. Whispers followed about a strange rulebook he'd written, called the Laws of Power, filled with commands for controlling prison life. Authorities found out, raided his cell, and threw him into solitary. Then in February 2023, TK tweeted from prison, exposing the harsh reality of his world. Someone on TK's block had just killed his cellmate with a food tray, then stood on his head afterward. That was the environment: brutal, relentless. Yet, even locked up, TK wouldn't go quiet. He still made headlines from behind concrete walls. His appeals went nowhere, each one denied without pause. Fans held on, hoping he might somehow overturn the second conviction, come home, and record again. But Joanna's testimony had slammed every door shut. He was trapped, abandoned by the courts, slowly fading from public memory. Even the rap game that once cheered him on. They once saw him as a rebellious hero, but even his fame moved on. Lil Yachty posted a prison letter from TK. A few others tried to catch the last sparks of his fading flame, but the truth was undeniable. TK's moment had passed. His only album dropped after his first arrest, leaving fans haunted by what might have been outside the prison walls. Lawsuits piled high. Mark Saliver's family sued for millions. So did Ethan Walker's. Every cent made from the race, the song that launched his name into the sky, became contested ground. Fought over by families still mourning what he took, haunted by the lives he shattered. No charts, no viral song, no cult following can undo the blood spilled or the futures erased. TK's story isn't a tale of triumph, it's a warning, a reminder that chasing fame without a conscience leads not to glory, but to a grave made of concrete and steel. The kid who once ran from the law now has nowhere left to go. His race is over. He was sentenced by the same system he once mocked. But this story isn't just about TK, it's a warning about how quickly fame can twist into downfall, how fast loyalty fades when pressure hits, and how desperate choices can lock you in cages you can't escape. In the end, the question isn't just what TK did, it's what it cost him. Did the system fail him, or did he fail himself? If this story moved you, if it gripped you, disturbed you, or opened your eyes, then hit subscribe, turn on notifications, and share it with someone who still thinks violence and fame are a winning combination. Because TK's story proves one thing without a doubt: there is no real glory behind prison walls. Only silence. Only regret. And remember, the next explosive story drops soon, right here. Stay locked in.